Hi and welcome. Please don't click away, because it's for me even more scary doing this. Like many others, I was looking for a 3D printer. But I was doubting for a long time, and finally I took this step. I was wondering about things like, is fun right out of the box? Or does it require a lot of thinking and research? So, is it like a warm bath of fun, or more like an icy lake of frustration? And can this also be done without breaking the bank? So, why this video, you may be wondering? Because there are already very good reviews done by experts, and they are. But that's perhaps a problem, I think, because they are looking into it from their knowledge level and not from a newbie like me and perhaps you. So with this, I want to share my experiences as someone who starts from square one. With my research, I came across the Prusa printers, which are probably very good printers, but as a Dutchman, I find that the price tag is a bit too steep. The next one you almost can't miss is the Ender 3 from Creality. It has a very acceptable price tag and it's a very popular printer, so it should be good enough. But since this printer has been introduced about 2 years ago, I was wondering, can I do better? And I think and hope I did, because this printer here cost me about €183 of my own money. And with that I got 1 kilogram of PLA filament and free shipment. So that made me smile as a Dutchman. Furthermore, it has about 3 times the build volume of an Ender 3 and it has dual Z motors, so that sounds future-proof for me if I want to upscale. It should be very easy to build, about 20 minutes, they say, which sounds appealing to me as a newbie, because there's less chance of me making a mess of it. It has power recovery, so when I stumble over the power wire after many hours of printing, everything won't be lost. It has a filament runout sensor, which sounds nice, I guess. It has the new Marlin 2, because newer is better, right? And I personally like the look of it, at least on the website. Oh yeah, and the company looked like a reasonably sized one, so not a small startup. Sounds interesting, right? So I bought this. Well, at least I'm very happy with it, so far. By the way, this is the S8 model. Before we start unwrapping, I like to remark that I will follow their instructions. I will use this one to make sure that everything is perpendicular. I will double check the voltage settings before starting up. And before starting to print, I will do a bed leveling. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Okay, this looks very good. So first of all we've got the guidebook. As I said, we follow the instructions. This is also applicable for the S8, S10 and the S11 printer. Until now they only have the S8, but apparently we get more from them. Interesting to know, because perhaps even those will be better. Yada yada yada. Keep away your hands from the nozzle or the heating bed during printing, preventing from burns. Sounds like a good plan. Do not reach into the printer area while working in case of personal injury. Sounds indeed like a really good thing. Shut down the power source in any case of emergencies. Oh really? So only buy their own filament. Well, they're also a very big filament company. Can imagine that they say that. With a cleaner or alcohol to clean the platform surface before printing. Machine works unattended is not recommended. Okay, so I need to babysit it apparently. Okay, I think we need to unpack it first before we start. So I will do that.
Here we go.
Here we've got a printer, except from an empty box. We also got here a spool with filament. Cut off the cable tie.
That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. And at the other side. That's 1. That's 2. And that's 3.
Put the square-shaped nuts into the slots. 1, 2 square nuts and 2 bolts. So we need to put those in here.
Barely.
The holes need to be aligned with a small white stripe. And also here at the other side. So the next part is we need to put up the gantry, which is this part, and put in these nuts with the Allen keys. And this one fits very nice. And then the next one is that we use 4 pieces of M5 25 bolts. Here we are again at a little bit different angle. Okay, so I put it loosely right up. And on here we've got 2 holes. And through those 2 holes these little bolts needs to be put. Up, down, and then through this extrusion. And what I did find out, I very bravely tightened these nuts, but they first need to go towards these little brackets to make sure everything is right up. So I need to unbolt these and put them through the holes first. I haven't put them on too tightly, so they've got a little bit of wiggle space, and of course we can make these ones perpendicular. So this can move a little bit but won't fall over. So next one, I will put these ones through here. Okay, apparently my square is a bit too ambitious, so I take a little bit smaller one. I've got a little bit smaller one, so by the way, small words of wisdom. If you got one of these, please always make sure that it's out of one piece, so you always know that's square and it won't be rocking or something. So let's put this one up here. Let's see, there's a little bit of play in there, so let's put it perfect like this. I've put everything together now for this one. Everything is perpendicular. I also checked also the other screws and bolts, and well, they are tight enough from themselves, so I had luckily nothing to do about that one. So I think regarding this part, I think we're done. So the next part, what I say, is making the filament support insulation. Sounds pretty big words, because I think it's just a small plastic part to put your roll of filament on it. It's a small bag with the pieces, and let's unwrap this present. So it's got 2 times the letter A and 2 times the letter I and a small dot. Okay, let's put this one together. Okay, so for the unwrapping part, I think only that takes almost 20 minutes. Well, perhaps a bit less, but it takes. Okay, small update so far. I got it together, but apparently they forgot to add some tolerances, put everything together. So what I did use, I use a small file, this one. And on the big A's, before of course you put it together, on the side walls you need to make it a little bit larger, so that these one slides better in. And when you've got everything together, only then add your screws, add your nuts, and add your bolts at the side. And one word of advice, be very careful, because if you put too much pressure to it, it will crack. And of course with the file you can get scratches, so be careful with it, if you also will do this. And we've got a small roller, which is like this, and I think this is done. Oh yeah, and then they put a small, then we need to of course put this roll of filament for it. Okay, over here I've got a small scale, normal kitchen scale, and let's put it on. It's 0, and it's by the way on grams, so sorry for the metric system. I put my filament on it. It weighs about 320 grams, so that's not 1 kilogram. So apparently I'm missing in the box the additional 1 kilogram of PLA. So I think that's one minus point from them. So of course I will contact them and to find out why my additional filament is. Okay, let's continue with the printer itself. Okay, so here we're looking at the front of the printer. And it is already indeed a sticker over here which says, okay, check for the voltage. And let's double check it. And my eye says it's 230 volts. So I think that's okay. So let's go towards the next step. The most important part, will it work? Will it bang? Will it smoke? Or will it just work? So let's connect it. Let's find out what happens if we turn it on. We've got a blue screen. Hopefully not of death. Okay, everything starts up. So here we are, looking at it. Okay, so we've got an X, a Y and a Z. We've got a bed temperature apparently of 18 degrees. I think it's Celsius. This is 0, that's probably the printhead, I don't know why. And it's ready and it's okay. So let's continue. Apparently according to the manual, we can with the knob turn and nothing happens. Okay, you need to push it. And then when you push it and turn, you can scroll through the menu. We press, of course, enter again. We've got the info screen. Okay, that's all okay. So then we can go towards the next part. So we start with the filament loading. So, according to the manual, we will do the following. Step 1, nozzle preheating. So I think we need to press it. Go towards to menu, so control. I'll press it again. Here we've got temperature, which is the next step. Then we've got nozzle. Scroll down, enter. You've got nozzle. According to the manual, it needs to be 195 degrees. So it'll be higher and higher and higher. And okay. We are 195 degrees. According to the manual, we need to insert the filament into the extruder. I've got my filament over here. I'll put it on an angle and then I can put it through the filament sensor and here in this little hole. And this is a little bit of center. By the way, I've unscrewed this one a little bit. This filament sensor that is more straight and notice that is a bit low. So I think later on I will put a little shim beneath it just to make sure it gets in straight. So I will use a little Allen key to put a little bit up over here. Okay, here's in. I must put these ones together and I will manually put it in here. And I will continue putting in the filament until it starts drooling. Isn't that nice? The first filament. Now then the next part, the bed leveling. So let's do it. According to the manual, we need to press this one. We go to the menu, scroll down towards prepare, push, bed level, so bed leveling, okay, level bed leveling, okay, so it's homing to its correct location. It says click to begin, so let's click. Well, and that's the bed leveling. And I've repeated these steps 3 or 4 times just to be sure. And as you see what I did in the beginning, I tightened the hole just to make sure that the nozzle doesn't hit the bed. And then just it goes through all the points. And what I noticed is if I just first put the paper underneath it, then I know that always the paper can be moved. And you slightly back and forth the paper until it slightly scratches it and you just adjust it up. And just repeat it every time. And by the way, before you start with it, Also clean the print nozzle, because there is a blob otherwise, and that would be nice. Back again with some fresh juice in my batteries for my camera, because they weren't completely empty. Well, I started up the machine. I've done a bed leveling. So the next part is that I add this glue stick, which was provided with some alien marking towards the bed. So let's do that first. Here we are on the screen. I've got over here, I've got the small SD card, so I put that one in. And the card's inserted. Off camera I also checked what was on the SD card, and on there was also a text file with please read this first. So I did that. So in there it said, well, okay, this only the models need to be on this SD card and no other information. So they also recommended to move all the software and all the videos and instructions of this card. So I removed all those. So let's start printing. We press the button to make sure that we are in the menu. Let's scroll down towards a print from SD, which is here, which says OK. Here we've got a map. Click we OK, which is Sunlu on the stick. In there is a model. Clicks OK. And let's start with number 1. And it's heating for both the extruder and the bed. Okay, well, she's done. Looks nice. Let's remove the part carefully. Oopsie. Carefully. When I look very closely, I can see a few very small pimples on the surface. So, can I do better? This issue has also been addressed by the YouTuber Chep, and he did solve this via using a brand name SD card. I used this SanDisk 16 gig card, but I noticed that the printer didn't recognize the SD card. Apparently, the card needs to be FAT32 format, and mine was formatted at exFAT. After reformatting and copying, we are ready to go. There was another model already provided on the SD card, so we'll use that one now. Otherwise, I will have many of the same prints, which sounds boring. By the way, I have already bed leveled and applied a layer of glue stick. So, here we are. I've unpacked, assembled and printed 2 models with this printer. So what do I think about it, having this done? First of all, the printer. It was up and running within 50 minutes, so that's good. Also in real life, the printer looks very nice. I also like the cable management, since the cables were within sleeves and tucked underneath the profiles, all within the same black color. The Marlin 2.0 version? Well, I looked for it, but I couldn't find the used version, so leave any suggestions in the comments below if you know how to check it out. Then the LED searchlight. I think it looks really cool and it adds visibility within a darker environment. The printer is singing while printing, but it's not my kind of music. That also brings us to the sound being produced, which is present. I wouldn't place it next to my bed, but it's a machine and most of my machines make much more noise. Just for now, I just place it in a separate room. On the printer, I noticed that the molded parts were produced by Sanyu, if I pronounce it correctly. I googled the name, but I only found an R-rated company. So, before you check it out, you're warned. The printer is built up with a combination of 2x2 and 2x4 profiles, so that looks tough enough for me for this size. I also measured the size of the bed, and indeed it's 31 by 31 centimeters. But in this area are also the 4 clips, so I don't know how you can use this full size. Next are the bonus items, which are not mentioned on the Sunlu website, but are included. There are caps at the end of the profiles, which looks much better. There's a part cooling fan, which blows when required. There's a blue silicone sock at the bottom of the hot end, so that keeps the hot end better on temperature with isolation. And the printer is very well oiled, so the gliders will roll very well. And the filament sensor looks like an optical one, which is good, I think. Then we come to the filament roll standard, which gave me mixed feelings. I did find that the protective foil was hard to remove, but luckily you only have to do this once. I needed to enlarge some holes with a file, so if Sunlu could enlarge these holes a bit during production, then it will save some frustration. Top tip! First put together all the panels and then the screws. And be very carefully with using tension on the screws, otherwise the panels will crack. Perhaps some spring washers could resolve this. But when assembled, it looks pretty cool. It also came with a roll of white filament, I think about 250 grams, and it printed very well. Then the missing 1 kilogram of PLA filament. I did mail the Sunlu support, I got fast response and they will look into it. No update so far, but if there are any update, I will add it later. So, then we come to the most important part, the printing. The first model, this 4-leaf clover, it does have some visible pimples. But keep in mind that this model is about 38 mm high and between the 35 and 55 mm wide. So regarding the size, it looks pretty nice. That brings us to the next model, which is this little figure, which is about 125 mm high and about 65 mm wide. And it is, what is it? It looks to me like a small fat baby with 1, 2, 3, 4 arms and a tail. Or is it 2 arms and 2 wings? Or is it a human squid? Or am I completely wrong and is it the famous Chinese holy figure? Well, add your thoughts in the comment section, I look forward to them. For printing this I used the brand name SD card of SanDisk, and also here there are a few small pimples. I did some research and found out that these are called zits and blobs, and these are due to over extrusion. They can be updated with the settings in the slicer before generating the G-code of the model. But since I used the provided G-codes, I will keep any further improvements for another time. Next comes unfortunately the cleaning of the bed. First I use this provided shovel to scrape away most of the glue. Make sure that you use this sharpened side towards the bed while scraping. The remaining can be wiped with a paper towel and some denatured alcohol, ethanol, and this should make the bed mirror clean. Further came with a package, a manual, 50 centimeters of USB cable, I haven't used that one yet, some tie wraps, also didn't use those, 5 Allen keys, only 2 of them needed so far, an 8 plus 10 size spanner, I also didn't use that one so far, some pliers with a silicone grip which felt really good, a glue stick, the shovel, an 8 gig micro SD card with the software and a model, including a USB converter. Then I also got some spares, a bag with extra screws for the printer and the filament holder, an extra nozzle, a nozzle cleaning needle, a micro switch, probably just in case, 2 extra pieces of white tube, these are to replace the one in the hot end and are consumables, and an extra connector for the filament tube. So that brings us back to the beginning of my original questions, which is fun right out of the box, or does it require a lot of thinking and research? Well, I think it's 90% fun right out of the box. There were a few small issues like the filament standard, but which you luckily only have to assemble once. And the pimples on the surface, which perhaps can be solved in Slicer. But for the money, I think it's very good. By the way, this 3D printing does take some time. Luckily, most time is spent by the machine and not by me so far. I just checked their website and they still have a discount on this printer. So if you're interested, I left a link to the Sunlu in the description so you can check them right out. Well, that brings me to the end of this video. Thanks for watching and hope to see you next time. Houdoe!